Hello everyone, Patrick in today's second video. So I've already released the Spring 2018 forecast. You can find that video here on the homepage. It's above the snow desk. Quite an interesting spring coming up. Going to be a lot of changing. I think it's start off quite cold. Not necessarily going to be an overly cold season, I don't think. So have a look and see what you think about. I'll place it on the spring forecast page either later on today or possibly tomorrow. I might be a bit later doing that this time because at 5 o'clock I've got the live chat coming up with Quantum. So we'll be going live. We'll be talking about the weather in our live stream, about the severe cold temperatures and heavy snow that is on the way for the next few days. So that'll be from 5 o'clock, probably to around 6:30 this evening. And after that, I'm always pretty tired. So I may not get the spring forecast onto the spring forecast page with the written summary until tomorrow morning, but I will place that on the spring forecast page for you before the end of tomorrow, most definitely. So this is the GWV Sunday Round Up. We're going to have our usual mix of this and that. Not going to have as much in terms of some of the more eclectic things like seasonal temperature anomalies today, because I've got a lot to focus on actually in terms of the cold weather that's coming in the next few days. So I'm going to talk about that primarily, but we will start off having a look at solar activity, also see what's happening in the stratosphere as well. So I think better get on with it. And this is the latest for the solar disk on our side of this today from solarham.net. We have a spotless sun, so therefore solar activity is at very low levels and is expected to stay and remain at very low levels for the next 3 days. This is the GWV Sunday Round Up Solar Activity Tracker from my good friend James Ackwood. It's just been updated and sent through to us this morning. So where we are right now, I did have a little bit of a spike a week or so ago up there with the sunspot numbers, only a very modest one though. Where we are right now is down here. We are back to spotless conditions once again. Our trend lines, the thick green and thick red lines, are all at a very minimal level of activity now, and kind of flatlining at that very minimal level of activity. So we remain where we have been for a couple of months now, which is at a very low level of solar activity, but still getting periodical increases in sunspot numbers. One just there, and then we go flat, and then one just there, and then we go flat. Another little increase there, man. About a week of no sunspots, and so that's how we're going along at the moment, and that's where what you'd expect to see as we head down into solar minimum. So we are kind of at a very minimal level of solar activity, sunspots, even though we haven't yet arrived at true solar minimum. We'll know when we get there because we'll have a run of several weeks, potentially, maybe months, of no sunspots at all. So the sun is going quieter, and at this point in the solar cycle, as you go into solar minimum, and particularly as you come out of solar minimum, you can start to expect an increased risk of blocking during the winters, because there's a connection between solar activity and sunspot numbers and northern blocking. And so as we're going into this quieter period of the sun, we can probably expect to see an increase in blocking, and thus an increase in the chance of colder winters. Not a guarantee of anything. There are never any guarantees with the weather, but it's kind of like loading the dice a bit in favour of winter blocking and therefore colder outcomes. We'll continue to monitor the solar tracker over the next few weeks. Right, this is what's happening in the stratosphere. This is at 10 HPA over the North Pole. This is from the GMA. So this is like the top level of the stratosphere, really, over the top of the North Pole. So we had quite a significant warming of the North Pole in the stratosphere at 10 HPA about a couple of weeks ago, week or so back. That's where we are right now. We've dropped down a little bit, but still at quite a high level, certainly above the grey line, which is the trend line for this time of year. So we're warmer than average at 10 HPA. If we go a bit lower down to 30 HPA, that's where the major southern stratospheric warming occurred a couple of weeks ago. So again, we've had 2 warmings now at 30 HPA over North Pole. That was our main southern stratospheric warming that lifted the temperature up by something like 50 degrees in around 3 days. Then it dropped down to that level, still very much above average. Then we had a second warming of the stratosphere at 30 HPA, and that's where we are right now. We're dropping back down, can't sustain those very warm temperature levels all that long, so we're dropping back down now, but still significantly again above this grey line, above the trend for the time of the year. Actually, we may see this black line push back up again in the next couple of days, because if we have a look at this chart, which is from the ECM-WF model from the University of Berlin website, this again looking at the level of 30 HPA, we see about another warming is occurring at the moment around Greenland. The black cross there, that is the North Pole of the Northern Hemisphere itself. So just south of that, we've got this major warming again taking place at 30 HPA in sort of the Greenland area, and as we go through into the next couple of days, that actually pushes into the actual North Pole. So this is how things are looking in a couple of days' time. Actually, it's how it's looking tomorrow, and we see that temperature has lifted up quite a lot again. So I suspect we'll see that black line pushing up if you look at those charts again tomorrow at 30 HPA. Doesn't last all that long, it begins to cool down again as we go through the course of the coming week, and eventually that's how we finish up by day 10, which is the 6th of March, with the temperature going back down pretty much to where you'd expect it to be. So these warmings that have been occurring, significant warmings as well, they're drawing to a close now. We're going to see the temperature lowering back down to more like average temperatures in the stratosphere in the next 10 days. So we probably won't look at this too much more. This is the wind and flux chart. So this is depicting the zonal winds. We had a reversal of the zonal winds after that major southern stratospheric warming just there. The blue line is where we've been with the zonal winds going right way back to the start of the season just here. And the black line is for forecast. So we have actually come out of that reversal of the zonal winds. We've gone ever so slightly positive with the zonal winds. So the zonal winds have picked back up a little bit, but still at a much reduced level. The black line is the forecast from the ECM-WF model for the zonal winds. And they are forecast to lift back up, get to that sort of level. Again, it is a reduced level compared to where we was earlier in the season. And you'll notice the black line does kind of like level off. And it's possible that after these next southern stratospheric warmings that having at the moment, 30 HPA, it's possible we'll see this black line dipping back down again. It probably won't go into full reverse again, but we may see another weakening of the zonal winds as we go further into March. That would be something to keep an eye on. This is the Arctic Oscillation observed and forecast chart. So the black line here tells us where we've been with the AO. The red lines at the end where GFS Ensembles forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. It's just an index that reflects the state of the atmosphere over North Pole. It doesn't drive anything, it just tells you what the atmosphere is doing. So right now the Arctic Oscillation is just there. We're kind of like in weekly positive territory, but within the next couple of days we're going to go very negative, and by the time we get through to the start of March we see the Arctic Oscillation has gone through the floor, so we go very negative indeed by the time we get through to the beginning of March in around a few days' time. So this tells us that blocking is going to be appearing. It's going to start off around Scandinavia, and it's going to push into Greenland and the North Pole. And so this is going to drive the Arctic Oscillation into very negative territory. As we go further into March, which is this period just here, we find the AO is beginning to come back up, but it is generally staying on the negative side. So the blocking will ease a little bit as we go further into March. But there will still be quite pronounced blocking, I would have thought, even into the second week of March. And this could return us to colder conditions. I think we're going to see the temperatures lifting up a bit at the very end of this week after probably a very heavy bout of snow and maybe blizzards on Friday. I'll talk more about that later on, but there is quite a lot of concern about Friday's weather. Then over the weekend we might get a bit of thawing, a bit of dripping, and it may, particularly for the south, get quite a bit milder over the coming weekend. But I think we have still got to be looking out for return to colder conditions through this first half of March. I don't think it'll be a straightforward sort of switch from very cold to mild conditions and we'll go off into spring. I suspect, particularly through the first half of March, we may have more throwbacks to cold weather at times. With the Arctic Oscillation in that sort of negative type territory, it does tell us that blocking, although it's easing a bit, will still be a factor. This is the NAO, same idea. The black line tells where we've been with the North Atlantic Oscillation. Red line's at the end, where GFS Ensemble forecasting the NAO to go. So again, we're starting off just there, positive with the NAO, but just as with the AO, the NAO is going to be going very negative in the coming few days. So by the 1st of March, we're down into that territory, -2, with the North Atlantic Oscillation firmly into negative territory. Further into March, similar to what the AO is doing, the NAO is easing from that very negative territory, but it's staying below neutral, so it's staying negative even towards the middle part of March. So what this tells us is that the blocking signal is going to ease a little bit, it's going to relax a little bit as we get further into March. It's probably not going to go away entirely, and so that's why I think we've got to be looking out, probably not as severe as where we're going to get in the next few days, but we have got to be looking out into the first half of March for just a continuation of colder interludes, really. I don't mean to be a straightforward switch from very cold, snowy weather that we've got coming up this week to spring. I think we will have further colder interludes and periods and snaps as we go through that first half of March. Right, GFS ensembles. So looking at Berkhamsted today. Someone's asked me to have a look at Berkhamsted down in the southeast. So we've got the red line here, which is the 30-year upper air temperature average. This is our very cold period coming up just here, and it's going to be bitterly cold in the days ahead. Again, going down to -15 at 850 HPA around the middle part of the week. There will be snow associated with that as well. Then at the end of the week and into the weekend, we're seeing the upper air temperature starting to recover. It's quite a slow process, happens over 2 or 3 days, but by the weekend we are back to the 30-year temperature average. You'll notice there are outlier members that are keeping the cold weather extending through the coming weekend and on into next week as well. Now those are outliers, but they can't be totally discounted. But it does look as though low pressure is going to push up from the south at the end of the week, bring heavy snow, possibly blizzards. Could be quite a memorable spell of really bad weather on Friday, and then introduce milder air, particularly to the south, next weekend, which provides us with this lift up in the temperature, in the upper air temperatures. And then we go further into March, and what we see is that we're probably starting to see signs of temperatures lowering again a little bit, actually, through this extended period, but that's a very long way off. As I don't totally discount these outlier members that want to extend the cold through the weekend and into the following week. I assume those outlier members, I haven't looked at them, see how they're doing that, but I assume they are probably pushing that low pressure to our south, keeping it across the northern parts of France. And that's always a risk in this kind of weather, that the low will kind of slide underneath the UK and just keep us in those easterly winds. But at the moment, not particularly well supported. Surface temperatures look like that. So we're already cold, really, at Berkhamsted and across many parts of the UK. And it's going to be getting cold as well. This is freezing, 0 degrees just here. So through particularly the early and middle part of the week and into the second half of the week, actually, temperatures are staying at or below freezing all day, with very cold nights coming up as well, going below somewhere between -5 and -10. By night. It really is going to be a case of being plunged into the freezer in the next few days. So the beast from the east certainly hasn't been downgraded. It is going to be a very, very cold spell of weather that we have over the next 2, 3, 4 days. By Friday and into next weekend, this period just here, we're starting to see temperatures picking up a bit, but very, very slowly, really. It's not till we get through until the following week, actually, but temperatures reach what you could say is a reasonably mildish level. Bear in mind we're in early March by then, so probably still even then, this level will be a bit cooler than average. These are those outlier members just here. These are the ones that are keeping things very cold through this period. But you'll see most of the ensemble members are lifting those temperatures up after a very pronounced spell of snow. That spell of snow is this area of precipitation spikes just here. That could give a lot of snow and blizzard and drifting type conditions on Friday before eventually starting to turn back to rain in the far south. Then over the coming weekend, that milder or less cold air starts to spread northwards, particularly across England and Wales. Scotland could remain locked into the freezer with this right way through the coming weekend, actually next weekend. But elsewhere, probably seeing the temperature starting to stage a little bit of a recovery and going more towards sleet and then rain as opposed to heavy snow. Temperature anomalies for the week ahead are looking like that. Really, really cold across virtual parts of Europe. So this is from the 25th of February through to the 5th of March. Bitterly cold temperature anomalies, particularly so for eastern parts of Europe, actually, where we're down to around 10 degrees below average. But in the UK and western parts of Europe, we're still even here talking about temperature anomalies of around 4, 5 or 6 degrees below average. So it's going to be a really cold week coming up. Precipitation anomalies are looking like that, close to average, not a great deviation. You'll notice again we've got above average precipitation close to the North Sea and through the Channel as well, telling us that some places will have some quite heavy snow in the days ahead. So this is how the GFS is looking for tomorrow. This is when the beast from the east is arriving, really, although it is cold even now, but the real cold hits us overnight tonight and into tomorrow. So by tomorrow we're into this bitterly cold easterly wind, which will be starting to feed snow showers in from the east. And then we go to Tuesday. There's a system coming in from the North Sea just there. That could bring more general snow some parts of the country overnight Monday and into Tuesday. Then we're into this long fetch run of easterly winds during Wednesday. That's bringing in bitterly cold air. Look at those upper air temperatures. Certainly hasn't been downgraded, this. It remains solidly the case that we are going to get a very cold spell of weather from Siberia in the days ahead. So Wednesday is a bitterly cold day. We've got the -10 isotherm out into the Atlantic, and we're bringing the -15 Celsius isotherm in from off the North Sea. We've got the 510 thickness line, which I've spoken about in the videos recently. That is through the country. Again, it's feeding in very, very cold Siberian air across the country. It's an unusual thing to see, the 510 line across the UK like that. It does visit us sometimes from the north, but it's very unusual to get that in from the east. And so with such cold sort of air temperatures overlaying the relatively mild North Sea, that's what produces the convective snow showers that we're going to have in the early part of the week. That's how Thursday's looking, still looking a very, very cold day indeed, with wind coming in from the east. Notice how tightly packed the isobars are as well on Thursday. So we're almost up to gale force with the wind. With such cold temperatures, we're going to have a severe wind chill factor through the middle part of the week. It really is going to be quite nasty indeed. And if you're going out into that cold wind in the middle of the week, you will need to wrap up very warm because it's going to be really, really cold. There's the upper air temperatures, minus 15 Celsius isotherm is across the country, which is unusual. It's unusually cold air mass that we have here moving in from the east. That's the 510 thickness line, again, very close to the UK. So everything is pointing to really quite a severe spell of weather through the middle part of the week. Don't be thinking, because by next weekend we're going to start to lift the temperature up a little bit. Don't be thinking that this is being downgraded. It has by no means been downgraded. It's possibly been shortened slightly, although it was never a certainty that we would keep this cold weather going through next weekend. So it might have been shortened a little bit, but it's certainly, the severity of it certainly hasn't been downgraded at all. This is going to be a very, very cold spell of weather that we've got coming up in the next few days. There's the dew points. They look severely cold as well. Can you imagine how cold it's going to feel with such cold dew points, along with such a strong easterly wind? The wind chill is going to be quite horrendous around the middle part of the week. Now, this is midnight Friday. We've got low pressure just to the southwest of the country. That's starting to move up from the southwest. Again, tightening the isobars further, so very windy. And as this low pressure is coming into that cold air, it's bringing heavy rain, which will readily turn to snow. And you can expect widespread, if this is right, expect widespread and heavy snow with blizzard conditions across much of the south on Thursday night and into Friday morning. Very gradually through Friday, this low pressure, it is a slow process, notice, so that's how it looks at midnight on Friday. That's where the low is at midday on Friday. It's made very little progress, so this is a really slow process as well. That's because it's coming into the blocking high pressure to our north, and also the cold air, making really slow process. So it's a slow moving band of heavy snow that we've got here across the south and southwest. This could be a very memorable spell of disruptive snow at the end of the week. Eventually, we start to pull up some milder air into the far south, although much of the north is very cold. This is midnight Saturday now, when I expect it will be starting to thaw a little bit down in the south, if this is right. And then through next weekend, gradually this low pressure inches northwards, starts to introduce those milder upper air temperatures. So that's how the upper air temperatures look by midnight on Sunday, with the cold air really restricted to Scotland, and most places are then starting to become less cold, allowing things to begin to thaw out. Not totally straightforward beyond that, though. We've got another area of low pressure down to the southwest on Monday, the 5th of March. Look at the route that's taking. That's pushing generally to the south of the country, which means many central northern areas go back to easterly winds by Wednesday the 7th of March. And so that starts to pull cold air back from Scandinavia again, particularly to northern parts of the country. So as I say, it is certainly possible that we may see further cold periods returning through the first half of March. That's Thursday, the 8th of March, a little bit beyond day 10. And the wind is going back into the east again across many parts of the country. And that's feeding down cold air most definitely across the country. So again, it isn't straightforward switch from this really cold weather we've got coming up to spring as we go into March. I think we're going to have more cold periods, particularly through the first half of March. That's the GFS, this is the ECMWF, and again the wind is in from the east as we go through into tomorrow, and then just a really cold spell of weather through the middle part of the week. We've already covered that. There's the upper air temperatures at midnight on Wednesday. That's midnight on Thursday, still looking bitterly cold across the country. Minus 15 Celsius isotherm is through the UK. Then this is midnight Friday. That low pressure starting to push up from the south, moving into that cold air, tightly packed isobar, so it's very windy. And as this low pressure hits the cold air, it produces a lot of snow down in the south. Very gradually, that low pressure pushes northwards, and we start to introduce less cold air to the south by midnight on Saturday. But it will produce a real dumping of snow and possibly a blizzard before we get to that point. And then we go through to Sunday, and then on to Monday, 5th of March. A low pressure is breaking through properly then as we go into a somewhat less cold period for a while. But that's how things are looking by day 10, and it looks like we're trying to go back into cold weather there, really. Cold air is starting to come back from the north again, and with this area of low pressure just here, we'd be having to watch exactly what route that low pressure takes. This is weather.us. This is the snow depth forecast based on that ECMWF run for the week. So starting tomorrow, just with some dustings of snow in the east to begin with. Then we go through to Tuesday, and we're starting to see more in the way of snow cover appearing in the east, and then we go through another 24 hours to Wednesday, and we've got quite a bit of snow cover then, all from those heavy snow showers across many parts of the country. The south things are looking. Go a bit further on to Thursday, the snow cover is getting deeper, particularly in east areas. It does overestimate snow depths a little bit, this model, but nevertheless, it's a suggestion that for many parts of the country, we'll have some snow cover through the course of this week from these easterly winds and the snow showers. And then we go through, of course, further into Thursday, and you'll see that we start to get some deep snow appearing down across South Wales, southwest England. That's that low pressure begins to push up from the south, so we get through to Friday, and look at that, a very deep snow cover has appeared across much of England and Wales. Very deep snow indeed, many places going to around 10 centimetres or more, 4 inches of snow cover by the time we get to Friday, and then that just expands and increases through the course of Friday, which could be a very, very snowy day indeed. Starting to reduce the snow cover a little bit down in the south as it begins by the end of Friday to go back more towards rain and sleet. And then as we go into next weekend, we find very gradually that the snow cover starts to reduce. But it is deep snow cover that we have there, so it's going to take a long time to thaw it away. But very gradually we are starting to thaw that snow away, particularly from southern parts of the country. And before we get to that, we've got the risk of some quite significant snow from these snow showers, which may band together to give more persistent spells of snow. So if I just leave you with this, this is the Euro 4 precipitation type forecast for 6 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday, where we're seeing an area of heavy snow moving into northeastern parts of England. That will probably push southwards through the rest of northern England in towards Wales and the Midlands during the course of Tuesday morning. Probably some sort of snow stream is setting up in the southeast, and also across Scotland. We've got quite a lot of heavy snow, particularly to eastern and northern parts of Scotland as well. And then, of course, we go into more snow showers further into Tuesday and on into Wednesday as well. So this is still looking like a very notable spell of cold weather. Possibly we come out of it next weekend, but between now and then, we're really in for it. It's going to be bitterly cold, maybe even you would say severely cold when we add on the wind chill. We can expect daytime temperatures to stay at or below freezing all day through the middle part of the week. There'll be a lot of snow showers as well, banding, as you just see there, into longer spells of snow at times. And then Thursday night to Friday, there's the prospect, the chance that we might get quite a severe spell of snow, maybe with blizzards affecting many parts of England and Wales, before eventually, it's going to be a slow process, eventually it starts to bring us out of this cold weather next weekend. Not a straightforward switch, though, from cold to spring, and I would expect we'll have more cold snaps, at least, through the early part of March. Right, so that's your Sunday Roundup. 5 o'clock, we've got a live event where we'll be discussing all of this. Myself and Quantum will be taking your questions. So if you want to know if it could snow in your area, we will do our best to answer everybody's questions from 5 o'clock this evening in our live stream. So come back to that at GWV. I'll also place it on our GWV's Twitter, Facebook pages, so it'll be fully interactive. You can ask your questions either at GWV's or on Twitter and Facebook, and we'll do our best to answer everybody. I assume there'll be a lot of interest, so we probably won't get round to everybody, but we'll answer as many questions as we can, and we'll discuss all of this in depth as well. Alright, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.